She was just a data analyst sergeant, always silent behind her glasses. The elite officers from prestigious universities mocked her, assuming she only knew how to follow orders. What they didn't know? In the online world, she was Valkyrie 7, a legendary chess grandmaster, and they were about to lose a game they didn't even know they were playing. Welcome to Inspirational Stories. What city are you watching this video from? If you love these stories, be sure to subscribe. The late autumn air over Quantico, Virginia, carried a distinct chill, a damp cold that clung to the red brick buildings of the Marine Corps base. A low, gray sky promised rain, threatening to turn the perfectly manicured lawns into muddy fields. Inside the Joint Intelligence Analysis Center, however, the weather was irrelevant. Here, the only climate was the constant sterile hum of servers and the cool, recycled air that smelled faintly of ozone and stale coffee. In this world of brilliant minds and colossal egos, Marine Sergeant Kaylin Vance, age 28, was a quiet fixture, as unremarkable as the gray carpet tiles. She was always the first to arrive, her golden blonde hair pulled back into a severe, immaculate bun at the nape of her neck, not a single strand out of place. Thin framed glasses sat perched on her nose, guarding a pair of startlingly intelligent blue eyes. Her posture, whether sitting or standing, was a testament to Marine Corps discipline, straight-backed and perfectly still. She occupied a workstation in the corner, a small island in a sea of data streams, and her focus was absolute. To most, she was simply the data processor, the silent engine that turned raw intelligence into neat, digestible reports. Captain Julian Hayes, a man whose Yale degree was his primary personality trait, certainly saw her that way. At 30, Hayes was the picture of an officer on the fast track, tall, with dark, meticulously styled hair, a sharp jawline, and a condescending smirk that he mistook for a charming smile. His uniform was always perfectly pressed, his boots gleamed, and a ridiculously expensive watch peeked from beneath his cuff. He moved through the center with an air of unearned authority, trailed by a clique of junior officers who mirrored his arrogance. That morning, Hayes was holding court in the briefing room, a high-tech amphitheater with a massive central screen. Kaylin was not invited, but the glass walls of her workspace gave her a clear view. She was tasked with collating the data for his presentation. "As you can see," Hayes said, his voice booming with self-satisfaction as he gestured to a complex network diagram, "the vector of attack was rudimentary, a classic brute force attempt. We isolated and neutralized it within minutes. A simple, clean victory." From her corner, Kaylin saw something else. As she sifted through terabytes of raw data, her eyes caught a ghost in the machine. A single, tiny packet of encrypted data that had slipped through their defenses during the main attack. It was inert, harmless, but its signature was unlike anything she'd ever seen. It hadn't failed, it had observed. The attacker wasn't clumsy, they were scouting, but she remained silent. Experience had taught her that her insights, offered without a prestigious degree to back them up, were often dismissed as noise. Hayes's gaze swept the room and landed on her. "Sergeant Vance, is that summary report compiled? Ensure it's neat for my debriefing. Leave the big picture thinking to the officers." A few of the junior officers snickered. Kaylin felt a familiar, hot sting of injustice, but years of discipline had taught her to channel it into a cold, sharp focus. She simply gave a curt nod, her eyes fixed on her screen. They saw a paper pusher. They couldn't see the vast, intricate chessboard inside her mind, where every piece of data was a pawn, a knight, a queen in motion. Later that afternoon, the tension in Kaylin's shoulders finally eased as she entered the base's recreation room. Private First Class Leo Martinez was waiting for her, slouched over a worn-out chessboard. At 19, Leo was a bundle of raw, unfocused energy. He was tall and lanky, with a mop of unruly black hair that constantly defied regulation, length and dark, intelligent eyes that held a flicker of rebellion. He'd joined the Marines to escape a rough neighborhood, but his impatience and hot temper were now threatening to get him kicked out. "I don't get it, Sergeant," Leo grumbled, shoving his rook forward impulsively. "I did what you said, built up my center, and I'm still losing." Kaylin calmly slid her knight into position, forking Leo's king and rook. "You're playing checkers, Leo, not chess. You see a piece, you take it. Your moves are powerful, but they're disconnected. You have to build a structure, a plan. Power without discipline is just chaos. She pointed to her own pawn structure, a solid interlocking wall protecting her more valuable pieces. Think of this as your fire team. Every piece has a role. A single private might not be as powerful as a captain, but a disciplined line of them can stop a queen in her tracks. Leo stared at the board, his usual defiance replaced by concentration. For the first time, he wasn't just looking at the pieces. He was seeing the space between them, the lines of force, the ghost of a plan. That night, in the quiet solitude of her small, off-base apartment, Kaylin Vance ceased to exist. She logged onto the world's largest online chess platform, and Valkyrie 7 was born. Tonight's match was for the Global Blitz Championship against a famed Russian grandmaster known for his aggressive, overwhelming attacks. As thousands watched online, the Russian launched a ferocious opening. Valkyrie 7 responded with a move of shocking, brutal elegance, a queen sacrifice so profound that the expert commentators were left speechless for a full minute, trying to comprehend its depth. 12 moves later, the Russian typed GG in the chat and resigned. A private message from another top player popped up on her screen. "Who are you, Valkyrie? Your game. It's not human." A small, rare smile touched Kaylin's lips. This was the only place she could be herself, the only battlefield where her strategy could unfold without being questioned, without being judged by her rank or her resume. The Central Operations War Room, known informally as the Pit, was the high-tech heart of Quantico. A cavernous, dimly lit space, its only illumination came from a colossal, wall-to-wall screen that bathed the tiered rows of workstations in an ethereal blue light. The air was thick with a palpable tension, the kind that precedes a storm. Today was the start of Operation Red Shield, the most critical cyber warfare simulation in a decade. Observing from a glass-walled command deck overlooking the Pit was General Marcus Thorne. In his late 50s, Thorne was a man forged by a lifetime of conflict. He was lean, almost wiry, with a full head of salt and pepper hair cut severely short. His face was a roadmap of his career, etched with lines of focus and command, but it was his eyes, a piercing, intelligent gray, that held your attention. They were the eyes of a man who had seen warfare evolve from muddy trenches to the pristine, silent battleground of cyberspace, and he respected the lethality of both. He wore his service uniform with an immaculate precision that demanded respect. "This is not a game," his voice, calm and resonant, filled the room via the intercom. "The Hydra entity is programmed to emulate a top-tier state adversary. It is adaptive, ruthless, and unpredictable. I do not expect perfection, I demand excellence." Down in the Pit, Captain Hayes stood as Blue Team's commander, his posture radiating an almost theatrical confidence. "Understood, General. We are ready." The simulation began. Hydra's attack did not come like a battering ram. It came like a virus, seeping through 1,000 invisible cracks at once. It wasn't a singular, focused assault, but a symphony of chaos. The power grid for a major city flickered. Stock market algorithms went haywire. Civilian communication networks became flooded with junk data. Alarms blared a discordant chorus through the Pit. As dozens of systems reported minor, seemingly unrelated breaches, the massive screen bled from blue to a patchwork of angry red warnings. Hayes' composure fractured. The textbook strategies he had memorized were useless against an enemy that refused to play by any known rules. "Block those ports. Reroute power from the secondary grid. Why wasn't I notified about that vulnerability?" he barked, his voice climbing in pitch. Sweat beaded on his forehead, his confident smirk replaced by a frantic, panicked scowl. From her corner workstation, Kaylin was a picture of serene focus. She ignored the blaring alarms and the rising panic. Her task was to monitor and log the raw data streams, and within the cacophony, she saw what no one else did. It wasn't random. She filtered the metadata, tracing the ghost-like signatures Hydra left behind. While everyone else saw a wildfire raging out of control, Kaylin saw the arsonist, carefully setting small, deliberate fires to draw the firefighters in the wrong direction. She saw the rhythm, the terrifying, brilliant logic behind the madness. Hydra wasn't just attacking, it was composing, and Blue Team was dancing helplessly to its destructive tune. That afternoon, Leo Martinez found Kalen in the rec room, a crumpled piece of paper clutched in his hand. It was the official summons for his disciplinary hearing. His usual rebellious energy was gone, replaced by a sullen, defeated slump in his shoulders. "It's pointless, Sergeant," he said, his voice flat. "They've already made up their minds. To them, I'm just another screw-up from the block." They sat at the chessboard, but Kalen made no move to set up the pieces. She looked directly at him, her gaze steady. "Then, show them something else. At that hearing, you are not a defendant, Leo. You are a player in a losing position. Do not lash out. Do not make excuses. Accept responsibility for your bad moves." She picked up a white pawn from the jumbled box of pieces. "Then, you show them your plan for the next moves. Present them with a detailed, structured proposal for how you will improve, how you will become an asset to this unit. Don't make them guess. Show them you can see the whole board, not just your own square." The advice was about more than chess. It was a lesson in navigating the rigid structures of the military, a lesson Kalen had been forced to learn through bitter experience. She was giving Leo the tools to survive and perhaps thrive in a system where she had only managed to endure. He listened, the challenge in his dark eyes slowly giving way to a flicker of a new, calculated resolve. The pit had become a tomb of impending failure. The relentless coordinated assault from Hydra had systematically crippled Blue Team's defenses, leaving them exposed and cornered. The air, once crackling with confident energy, was now heavy with the metallic scent of despair. General Thorne descended from the command deck, his boots making no sound on the tiered steps. He moved through the chaos with a dangerous calm, his gray eyes sweeping over the panicked faces until they locked onto Hayes. "I am not paying Yale-educated minds to offer me excuses." Thorne's voice was a low growl, yet it cut through the din like a razor. "I need a solution, Captain. Now." Hayes, whose face was pale and slick with sweat, could only shake his head, his bravado utterly shattered. "General, we can't win. Our core systems are compromised. The best we can do is mitigate the damage." "Permission to speak, General." The voice was quiet, yet it carried an unwavering certainty that silenced the room. Kalen Vance stood from her workstation, her posture ramrod straight. Hayes spun around, his eyes wide with disbelief and fury. "Sergeant, this is not the time for a data report, unless you can somehow turn those numbers of yours into a miracle." "That is precisely my intention, Captain," Kalen retorted. For the first time, the steel in her spine was audible in her voice. General Thorne's gaze shifted to her, his expression unreadable but intense. He had nothing left to lose. "Speak, Sergeant." Kalen strode to the main holographic display, connecting her personal tablet. The chaotic map of network failures flickered, and a translucent three-dimensional chessboard materialized over it, the pieces glowing with a soft blue light. "General, Captain," she began, her voice steady and clear, "you are trying to put out fires, but you fail to see the arsonist. Hydra isn't attacking us, it's leading us." Her fingers danced across the tablet. "These seemingly random attacks are not random at all. They are a textbook, albeit brilliant, opening gambit." She highlighted the attack on the civilian power grid. This wasn't about damage, it was a fianchetto, developing their bishop to control a long diagonal, forcing our defensive assets to shift west. All of this, she gestured to the dozens of crises on the screen, is misdirection. It's a feint to mask their true objective, a checkmate in 15 moves, targeting our global command satellite network. She outlined a breathtakingly audacious counter-strategy. "We cannot defend everywhere. We must sacrifice a piece. We will intentionally sever our access to one of our secondary data relay networks, our Rook. Hydra is arrogant. It will not be able to resist the bait. When it concentrates its forces to seize the network, it will expose its central command server for precisely 1.7 seconds. That is its king. And when it does, we checkmate." A harsh, incredulous laugh erupted from Hayes. "That's preposterous. This is cyber warfare, not some board game in the park. To sacrifice our own infrastructure based on a sergeant's hunch? General, it is far too reckless." Thorne's eyes moved from the cold, calculated logic glowing on the screen to the raw panic in Hayes' face. The choice was clear. "Her recklessness is preferable to your incompetence, Captain," the general declared, his voice leaving no room for argument. Execute Sergeant Vance's plan, to the letter. Miles away, in a sterile administrative building, Leo Martinez stood at attention. His hearing was being presided over by Captain Eva Rostova, a woman in her 40s, whose stern expression and perfectly starched uniform suggested she had zero tolerance for nonsense. She had a reputation for being tough but fair, a rarity that gave Leo a sliver of hope. Instead of the defiant attitude she expected, Leo looked her directly in the eye. "Captain, I was wrong," he stated, his voice clear. "My tardiness was a failure of my personal discipline. There are no excuses." Rostova's eyebrow arched slightly. This was not the start she had anticipated. Leo continued, presenting a typed, single-page plan. "This is my proposal to rectify my conduct. I will volunteer for extra duties for the next month. I have enrolled in a time management course offered on base, and I would like to volunteer to mentor a new private in my platoon." The captain reviewed the document, her expression unreadable. She saw not a troublemaker, but a young Marine making a calculated strategic move to save his career. She saw potential where others saw only problems. He had turned a losing position into an opportunity. He was given a formal reprimand and assigned the extra duties he had volunteered for. As soon as he was dismissed, he pulled out his phone, his hands shaking slightly, and typed a quick message. In the controlled chaos of the pit, as she directed the first phase of her gambit, Kaylin felt her phone vibrate in her pocket. She glanced down at the screen, a text from Leo. "It worked, Sergeant. They listened. Thank you." A small, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. One game won. Now for the other. The execution of Kaylin's gambit began with a deafening silence. On her command, the team deliberately severed the connection to the secondary data relay network. On the main screen, a massive section of Blue Team's digital territory went dark, a self-inflicted wound that felt like madness. Captain Hayes crossed his arms, a venomous, triumphant sneer forming on his lips as he watched. He was already composing the scathing after-action report that would end the sergeant's career. The bait was taken. As predicted, Hydra's code surged into the vacuum, a digital shark frenzying on what it perceived as a fatal error. Its arrogance was its undoing. For a fleeting moment, in its haste to consume the vulnerable network, it rerouted too many processes, causing its central command server, its king, to ping the network with an identifiable signature. Kaylin's voice cut through the tense air, not with a shout, but with the cold, final precision of a striking blade. "Check." The elite cyber counterattack team, positioned and waiting for that single word, unleashed their trap. It was a swift, brutal, and elegant assault. They didn't attack the virus, they attacked the puppeteer. Within minutes, Hydra's entire command structure collapsed. The cascade of red alerts on the main screen flickered and died, replaced one by one with glowing green status indicators. Then, in massive block letters, the screen declared, "Operation Red Shield, Blue Team victorious." A stunned silence held for 3 seconds before the pit erupted. Cheers, shouts of disbelief, and relieved laughter echoed through the cavernous room. General Thorne did not cheer. His gaze was fixed, not on the screen, but on Kaylin, who was calmly shutting down her diagnostic programs. Then his eyes shifted to Hayes, who stood frozen, his face a mask of slack-jawed horror. "Seal all logs from this simulation," Thorne's voice boomed, instantly quelling the celebration. "Audio, video, and data, effective immediately. I want a full internal review on my desk by Wanjo 800 tomorrow." The review was conducted by Master Gunnery Sergeant Alistair Finch, a man from the Inspector General's office who looked as though he'd been carved from granite. Finch was in his late 40s, with a shaved head, a ramrod-straight posture, and a gaze that could peel paint. He was a legend in the Corps for his incorruptible nature and his methodical, relentless pursuit of the truth. He found it quickly. The evidence was damning, a clear pattern of Kaylin being excluded from strategic meetings, her insightful preliminary reports being signed off by Hayes without action, and emails from Hayes to his subordinates containing condescending remarks about the data clerk. The confrontation took place in General Thorne's office. Hayes stood at a rigid, terrified attention before the general's desk. Finch stood impassively by the door. "Captain Hayes?" Thorne began, his voice dangerously quiet. Master Gunnery, Sergeant Finch's report makes for fascinating reading. It tells me that you had a strategic mind of generational talent under your command, and you had her collating spreadsheets. Your arrogance, Captain, is not just an insult to a fellow Marine. It is a direct and unacceptable threat to national security. You failed as an officer, you failed as a leader, and you failed this command. Hayes opened his mouth, but no words came out. He was utterly broken. The consequences were swift and severe. Hayes was brought before a board of inquiry and given a choice: face a court-martial or accept a dishonorable discharge. He chose the latter, his promising career ending in absolute disgrace. His closest cronies were formally reprimanded and reassigned to logistical posts in the most remote, career-ending locations the Marine Corps had to offer. The message was unequivocal. Ego had no place in the defense of the nation. Kalin was given a meritorious promotion directly to gunnery sergeant and assigned to the newly created position of senior strategic advisor with an office adjoining General Thorne's. A few weeks later, the last of the autumn leaves had fallen, and the first hints of a Virginia winter were in the air. A reformed and confident Leo Martinez stood before Kalin's new desk. He wore his uniform with a newfound pride, his posture sharp, his eyes clear and focused. "Gunnery Sergeant," he said, the new title rolling off his tongue with genuine respect. "I wanted to inform you that I have submitted my transfer request for the intelligence field. I want to learn to see the whole board, the way you do." Kalin looked at the young man and saw not a troubled private, but a Marine who had found his purpose. "I will write your letter of recommendation personally, Martinez. It will be a good one." That evening, Kalin sat in her spacious new office, the scent of wood polish and new carpet still in the air. The door opened and General Thorne entered. He carried a long, flat box. He placed it on her desk and opened it, revealing a magnificent hand-carved walnut chessboard, its pieces weighted and felted. "Every strategist needs the right board, Gunny," he said. He picked up the white queen, its polished surface gleaming in the low light, and placed it in the center of the board. "Ready for the next game?" Kalin Vance looked up from the board, her blue eyes no longer shielded by silence, but shining with confidence and purpose. She smiled. "Always, General. Always." The story of Gunnery Sergeant Kalin Vance teaches us a powerful lesson about faith and purpose. Her incredible talent wasn't a coincidence. It was a God-given gift, waiting for the perfect moment to be revealed. You see, what happened in that war room was more than just strategy and skill. It was a small miracle, a perfect example of divine timing. God placed his quietest warrior in the heart of the storm, not just to win a simulation, but to remind us that he often works through the people we least expect. In our own daily lives, how many times do we feel like Kalin? Overlooked, undervalued, sitting in the corner while others make the plans. You may feel that your unique gifts, the ones God blessed you with, are going unnoticed. But this story is a reminder to hold on to your faith. Trust that God has a plan for you and that he sees the Grandmaster he created you to be. Never underestimate the person sitting next to you, and more importantly, never underestimate yourself. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to be reminded of their own hidden strength. In the comments below, let us know what God-given gift you are most thankful for. And to ensure you don't miss our next story, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. May God bless you and your family, and may he always place you exactly where you need to be, right on time.